ran with the wrong crowd and ultimately ended up on the streets, panhandling for change and sleeping in park benches. At 17 years old, I became a dad, and that changed everything for me because it was the hammer in the nail up the behind that I needed to actually get up and do stuff.
I can buy $1 million property or start $1 million business. I won't lose an hour of sleep.
96% of the people out there are sitting on a nail. So we actually have retreats. So I've been doing these for the past 7 years, $1 million in debt, about to lose my business. And so at 24, I realized that.
At 24 years old, I was let go of my corporate job. By 34, I was financially free with an 8-figure net worth. This podcast is all about taking adversities and turning them into financial success stories. I'm gonna ask for one small favor, and that's for you to click subscribe. Now let's get to the journey. I'm with the godfather of real estate. Welcome. Let's go. I'm super excited for this podcast because I've seen you online and you're so authentic in everything you do. And you came to the studio and you already are doing a lot of filming, a lot of editing, like, the day in the life of yourself.
Yeah.
What made you embrace in that social culture and get so authentic on camera and want people to know who you actually are?
Well, it's not a normal thing to do,
No.
and especially with my background, like my mom thinks I'm crazy.
Right.
Usually my mom's idea was like, if you share where you're going when you're going on vacation, that's how people know when you're not home, they're gonna rob you.
Right. It's funny because when I went on social media, my parents were the biggest critics because they're like, you're sharing too much. What are you doing?
Yeah.
There's crazy people out there, blah, like all the protection.
Yeah, of course. And it makes sense, but we live in a different world. Everything's online. If you're in a mall, there's how many cameras in a mall? Like, you're always being watched. And I don't to me it's like I don't worry about those things because it's like at the end of the day, if someone wants to come and get you, they'll get you anyways. Doesn't matter if you're online or not online or whatever, So it's really not a thing that I think about much. Um, you know, coming from that background, so we came to Canada as refugees, and my mom was involved politically back home, and so we lived a very private life. And my mom was very private. She's still very private, and it was not in my nature to be out there with sharing my business. I'm online every day. There's a video that comes out on my YouTube channel every day, and I I had to grow into that. Obviously we come from a world with no social media. Back in the early '90s, late '80s, there was no such a thing as a social media. But when they created, and I've been in business for a while, but when they created Facebook, and I saw that I had friends on Facebook, and I took it very differently than how other people took it. I saw it as a tool, right? People saw it as a way to, you know, connect with your friends and keep up to date with your friends and, share what your political views are. I was like, this is a massive tool. This is incredible. And I can't remember, it was like 2007 when I actually joined Facebook. And I knew that I was going to use that tool for everything I did moving forward, because think about how much does a major corporation pay for advertising to get eyeballs, I used to have a show on Rogers, and so I had a lot of the back end information. Do you know that Rogers at one point they were transitioning into 4K, and so they invested something like, you know, $500,000, or I can't remember the amount. It maybe could even been into millions, and for do a 4K broadcast of the Red Blacks. There was 13 people on the watching the thing, right? So companies pay money for attention, and if you're in business and you're not out there authentically showing up into the world, you're just gonna be part of the noise. No one's gonna no one's gonna want to do business with you because the entrepreneur is more interesting than the actual business.
You say authentic.
Yeah.
Now, before 2007, Facebook came on, and I would say until recently, there was when I even started my first business, it was very like graphics, video, professionally done. Every video. There's been a switch in the last 5 years where people want that real, authentic, maybe to the extreme
Yeah.
of what people are doing and showing these days on social media. But when did you start being more authentic on social media? Like when did you?
I think social media was a huge tool for me because I could be authentic. You know, when they came out with a funny story, TikTok,
Yeah.
okay? So my daughter introduced me to TikTok, and I did one or two videos with her. I'm like, this is my jam. I think TikTok was actually the first social media platform where you can actually, like, being serious and showing off was not the thing.
Yes.
You had to kind of show your silly side,
Yes.
your kind of free spirit side.
Agreed.
And I think the tool of social media and why I've gotten such a big following is because I'm myself. I'm quirky guy. The videos, my kids to this day say, "Dad, you do YouTube wrong." And I do,
Right.
because I'm not doing it for thousands and hundreds of millions of people. I'm doing it for the people that want to follow what I got to offer. And they will watch all my content on real estate or whatever. But the content that gets the most views is regular stuff, not like negative things, not
Yeah.
political things. But for me, it's like, someone stole my phone. Okay, so then I did a video on like how someone stole my phone, why did they steal it, how did they steal it, and what happened after that. And so people just, even my mom, she's like, "Mijo, what happened to your phone?" And so everybody, I get that attention, and then they stay. And okay, I like this place, and they see all the videos, they're quirky videos with my kids, just being silly. And I think if you show up as yourself, now it's not authentic if you're trying to become a quirky guy.
Yeah.
That's not authentic.
Yeah.
Being authentic means being yourself.
Yeah.
Being yourself. Don't take things too seriously. And I think that is part of my brand. Just kind of, I have a weird laugh. I'm kind of like, I'm Latino, so everything I do has got a little flavor to it, and it served me. It
So
served me in my business and everything.
so now are you still on social media? Are you still on TikTok?
Yeah,
And you
but
still
I think there was that. Well, during COVID, we're all bored. During COVID, we're all bored, and so I had more time on my hands, to do really cool. Because what I would do is I would take any trend,
Yeah.
and I would try to relate it to, real estate somehow, right? And I was doing that on a daily basis because we're sitting at home, but every once in a while I'll come up with a cool idea, and when the team has like really well edited videos or whatnot, but I always show up and, hey guys, I'm just here, just kind of like myself. The key is, if someone meets you in person, it should be the same person.
That's a lot of creators that come on here.
Yeah.
That's the main thing they say. Is
Yeah.
whenever they want to meet someone, they know them online like how they were. And meeting you, seeing all your videos, and then meeting you for the first time, you're exactly
But that's what you want,
Yeah.
because you don't want to put up a facade,
Yeah.
because even it could be an authentic facade.
Yeah.
Like, I'm this guy, I'm genuine, I do all these things. But if you really don't do those things, there's nothing wrong with just being yourself, and you're going to attract the people that are in alignment with who you are. I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Mm.
I know that. And so I'm only focused on the people that resonate with me, and we have shared values. And that's how we built every business. We have, multiple different companies, and we've attracted good team members, and, our community, it's thriving. And it's all people that are like me. How does that happen? Well, just show up as you all the time, and you're going to attract the same people.
And you talk about attention economy, attention social media.
Yeah.
Okay, you got attention. Now what?
Now
Like,
you
how do
get
you?
trust.
Okay.
We are in a trust recession. You got AI, you got people that are not authentic, and there's so much noise out there. People
Yeah.
don't trust anything they see. And so we are in a trust recession. And so after attention, after you get their attention, now you got to build trust. Without trust, you can't go to the next step, which is monetization, right? Trust comes first, and trust comes from consistency, showing up consistently as you are, right? And so, I sometimes I'll meet people that join my community, or they whatever they're gonna do, and they say, "I've been watching you for years."
Mm.
Think about it. Someone's been watching me on YouTube for years, and then they decide to do business with me, right? So it takes time to build trust, and it takes seconds to lose that trust.
I was just gonna say that. The flip side is, are you way more conscious of that loss of trust of someone recording you, having a conversation that is a private conversation? Is that in the back of your mind at all?
Never, because the way I show up online is the way I am in real life. So anything that I'm gonna say that would come out of my mouth would be something that
You would
would be
say.
in alignment with who I am, and and that's just how it is.
So, attention, putting yourself out there,
Mhm.
being authentic, trust, consistency,
Yeah.
monetization.
Well, trust is showing up the same way all the time. Because if you show up, one day you're this guy, then the other day you're that guy, then then you lose the trust.
Yeah.
You can have consistency, but if you're not consistent with the message, so there's consistency in showing up, and then there's consistency with the message, and people need those two. Without if you're confuse your audience of who you are, you can be consistent, but it's never gonna land.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
I'm a I would say I'm a freedom fighter. I I I fight for people's financial freedoms, and I think we're living in a world right now where um, that's at stake. Because you know how are people gonna work 9 to 5, 40 plan, and that's not just where we are right now. It's not a reality of what the future is going to hold. And so I want to share as much as I can from what I've done in my life with as many people as possible, and show them the way on how they can achieve financial freedom in their lives. So we do this with young people. I think like we started a foundation, the Quadra Youth Foundation, where we're teaching young people financial freedom. I do this with you know young people in their 20s. So my daughter and I, we started um, a mastermind for young people in their early 20s to get started in real estate. And then anybody that wants to interact with me in terms of Wealth Genius, I want to teach them everything that I learned to get to this place where I have all the freedoms in my life: financial freedom, time freedom, and location freedom. And so those are the three freedoms that I think that if people had those, they're going to do amazing things with their life. I'm not about buying Ferraris or whatever. I'm not trying to help anybody buy another Ferrari or a super yacht. There's nothing wrong with those things. But a lifestyle, I believe a life is meant to be well lived. And you can only live a good life if you have time freedom. And so when I say I'm a freedom fighter, I fight for people's financial freedom, time freedoms, and location freedoms. That's who I am.
And is that the message you are consistent on online?
Yeah, yeah. That's I've basically shown people my entire journey since when they opened up YouTube 2008 or whatever, or maybe before that. But I joined 2008. At first I was very much in business, an entrepreneur. I've always been an entrepreneur, and then transitioned into real estate. And by the time I was 30, I was financially free. And as you know, what are you gonna do if like you sold your companies?
Yeah.
I sold my companies at 30 years old. I exited. I had my real estate, very similar journey where I was buying real estate, and I realized at 30 when I sold my companies that I didn't have to work another day in my life. And so I tried to do the sitting on the beach thing. It didn't work out, bored, And so I realized life is about fulfillment. And what's going to fill my cup, what's going to fulfill me is being of service to people. And so for the past 18 years ago, my message has always been entrepreneurship, real estate, financial literacy. This is your way to freedom.
What is financial freedom to you? Is it
Well,
is
there's
it no debt? Is it cash flow on a monthly basis that pays your lifestyle? Is it $5 million in the bank account? What is it?
financial freedom. I always go back to the game of cash flow. So everybody starts off in the rat race, right? And so basically everybody's on a month to month schedule. Your bills come, once a month. And the older you get, the more that first of the month gets bigger and bigger. Those expenses get more and more and more. And so the only way to get out of the rat race in the cash flow is when your passive income surpasses your expenses. And once your passive income surpasses your expenses, you're now out of the rat race and onto the fast track. And so now you have the time to do many things. You can focus on other businesses and things like that. So at 30 years old, and now my portfolio now is 10 times the size as it was when I was 30.
Mm.
But when I was 30, I didn't have to work another day in my life because my passive income could pay for all of my living expenses. I don't have big living expenses,
Mm.
but at the end of the day, I knew that now I have total freedom. Now I can think about creation and building and create and uh, being fulfilled, social contribution, impact. I can think about all those things because you know b- before in my 20s, it was like, okay, the end. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to pay the car payment. Da 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 da. That's the focus, right? And that focus, it's a big distraction. And so this is why people can't move to the next steps because they gotta pay all the bills at the end of the month.
The fear of the debt, the fear of the monthly cash flow, do you think that's what prevents them from being that creative and taking those chances?
No, the fear of so look, you know, I have um uh, I have a growth mindset. I believe anybody that has a growth mindset can achieve anything they want. But in my country, in Latin America, many people are poor. How come? Right? Well, there's something that happens in North America where all your basic needs are taken care of, right? So imagine you're holding a door, and behind that door you have, um, you know, bill collectors. You have, you got to put food on the table. They're going to kick you out of your house. There's war. There's crime, and all these things. That people have to deal with in developing countries, right? And so they're holding that door closed as much as possible to make sure that they can, at least survive. So survival becomes the focus. And so they can't think about prosperity. They can't think about expansion. They can't think about any other step. Now, when we come to, you know, uh, North America, people are affluent here, right? So your basic needs are taken care of. Now what? Well, you got to pay the car payment. You got to now pay the mortgage, and because now you have leased your life, right? So,
Right.
so you have all of those payments now, and so that becomes a focus. And until you can get out of the rat race, you'll never be on the fast track because any decision that you make, and I have a video on my YouTube channel, it's called "Don't Quit Your Day Job" for entrepreneurs, because usually what happens is they quit their day job too early, and then the entire focus becomes about the end of the month. How am I going to make my bills at the end of the month? And there's no money coming in or whatnot, and just they make bad decisions if all your decisions are based on the end of the month, versus if your basic needs are being taken care of, you can now grow and create. You can build, and you can take your time, you can build a fortune, build an empire, because you're not focused on what's going to happen at the end of the month.
It resonates with me so much because the rat race is what a lot of people go through right now. And in the last 5 years, the affordability across the board is going through the roofs. Like going to a grocery store, buying food. That rat race is getting bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
it's caving in on a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you give hope to those people?
Well, one is hope. I believe in hope, but sometimes I think people smoking the hopium.
And that means they're not doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Thinking,
yeah. They're thinking about it and being hopeful about
right,
it, and
not
things are
sprint,
going to be all right,
right.
And ultimately, you got to take action.
Mm.
You got to do something about it. It's like the story with the hound dog on the porch, and the the owner sitting on the porch with the hound dog, and the hound dog is doing this.
Mm.
You hear this story?
Yeah.
And then the guy comes by. There's some guy walking by, and he's like, "Hey, your hound dog is crying. Like, what's going on?" He's like, and then the owner says, "Yeah, no, it's no problem. He's just sitting on a nail."
Right. Right.
And the guy's like, and the dog's like,
Yeah.
"Arr!"
Right.
And the guy's like, "Why did this get off the nail?" He's like, "Oh, it doesn't hurt bad enough." And so, 96% of the people out there are sitting on a nail that's uncomfortable. Life is uncomfortable. Life is expensive. Life is, getting more expensive. They're getting behind, but it doesn't hurt bad enough, because when they go home, they still have Netflix, they still have food on the table. It's only when something really dramatic has to happen to that person. For example, if you go underneath the porch and you hit the nail up, up the dog's behind, the dog's gonna get up for sure. You know what I mean? But meantime, everybody's just sitting on a nail. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. There's inflation. It gets more expensive, but they don't do anything about it because it doesn't hurt that bad yet.
Did it ever hurt that bad for you to make a change?
Oh yeah, I mean, people talk about rock bottom. I don't believe you need to hit rock bottom, but I hit rock bottom. I came here as a war torn refugee. I was actually in two wars before the age of 9, and so you know, back home, we didn't have an opportunity to go. I didn't go to school like regular kids, so I missed a lot of learning opportunities. Obviously, you're moving from one place to another, regime change. Uh, my mom was illegally detained, so she was involved as a journalist in a lot of things, and my grandparents had to keep me in hiding, and so I was held in isolation for like the first 5 years of my life. And when I arrived here, obviously there's a lot of trauma and probably psychiatric work that would have to have done happen. But we just kind of we're trying to integrate into the Canadian society, and we grew up on social housing, and so I ran with the wrong crowd and ultimately ended up on the streets. So you know, panhandling for change and sleeping in park benches, right here in Ottawa, right? So we see a lot of these people today. Like if you walk down Rideau, there's going to be a lot of people that, you know, had better days. And I was one of those people, you know. And I went through some dark time, really dark times, and you know, that's, I would say that's rock bottom for me. But it didn't hurt bad enough. There was nothing really. I was uncomfortable, and all I had was a lot of excuses at that time. And you know, I did want to do better with my life. You know, sometimes, you know, friends would let me sleep at their houses, and you know, I figured out how to survive. But it wasn't until my daughter was born when I was 17. So I was a teenage parent. My daughter was born. Her name is Talia. She'll be 31 this year. So that was 30 years ago. And everything changed for me. And so anybody can get off from the nail, but you need there's something that has to drive you. They have to have a level of determination. And I was, for the first time, I discovered what my purpose was. So before that I had no purpose. And so I I I would say a lot of people don't have a purpose. They just live day by day and hope things are going to get better, right? And maybe they're not better right now, but things will get better, and so we're just going to keep plugging away, doing the same thing we've always done. And so for me, at 17 years old, I became a dad, and that changed everything for me because it was like it was the hammer in the nail up the behind that I needed to actually get up and do stuff. And that's when I started my first company in 1995. And there was no choice. Like I had to make this work. And so, you know, a lot of people uh, think about rock bottom. You don't need to achieve rock bottom, but you need to make a decision, and you need to find the you need to have a purpose or a powerful why and why you want to accomplish it, anything in life, and you're gonna do it, or else you're just gonna be sitting on a nail for the rest of your life.
And your purpose at that point was take care of your family?
I wanted to make my little girl proud of me. You know, I never wanted. There's something that happened. You know, when I was 12 years old, I asked my mom, "Where's my dad?" She's like, "Your dad left her in the war and never came back," and that impacted me in a very negative way at 12 years old. And so when my daughter was born, I was like, I never ever wanted her to feel that way. And my why, and this is after much work, you know, I didn't even realize that at the time, but my why was to not just make this little girl proud of me, but making sure that she knew there was a a father involved, and I was always going to be there for her. And so that means financially, that means, you know, making sure that she has a good life, opportunities, all of that. And so how was I going to do that if, you know, if I didn't have the means? And so now I got to go out and get the means. And so that's how it started for me.
And when you say you worked on it, like how did you work on it?
When
Like how did you work on your why and really figure out
oh, over the past 30 years now. So sometimes you do things by default,
right?
right? So it's like my daughter's born, I went into action. I didn't have a time. I didn't go to any personal development, you know, workshop where I saw the light, and then, you know, I read a book or something, and then, oh my God. But when that nurse put my daughter in my arms, it just changed the trajectory of my life. And I didn't know what, I didn't know how. I knew I had to do something. And so I started that entrepreneurial journey in 1995, and I grew. I grew to, you know, locations all across Canada. You know, by the time I'm in my early 20s, I got a thriving business. Now I realized very quickly that I didn't know much about business. You know, I just kind of stumbled onto business because of a drive, the market conditions, kind of where we were. And, you know, obviously 1995, we were in the middle of a recession. And so, you know, I got to grow with the economy. And then in the early 20s or late 90s, early 20s, Ottawa became a tech hub. and money was pouring, and money was everywhere, and so I got the opportunity to participate in that, and I grew my business, but I was very much a consumer. So money in, money out, money in, money out. And so at 24 years old, I find myself, $1 million in debt, about to lose my business. And so at 24, I realized that I had to change things. And so I started to educate myself. I went into chapters, picked up the first book, you know, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which kind of like opened up the doors to books and content and inspirational people and mentors, and that was my journey, and discovering myself and what I was really capable of, and digging deeper on my why. So I realized that my daughter was my why, but you know I did a lot of work on myself on why did that moment, because the first, I don't know if you know this, but the 7 layers of why. I don't know if you've ever read up on why, or
No.
done a lot. I think it's a worthy exploration for a lot of people to discover why do they do anything,
Yeah.
right? And so after digging, and the way that I've learned it is that your why is actually 7 layers deep. For example, what's your why?
To serve people.
Okay, why? Because and I'll stop you right there. The first why is always the superficial one.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first why was my kids,
Right.
but that's the superficial one. And so then you say, well, why?
Mm.
Why do you want to
And then
serve
you keep
people?
on, and then you get deeper.
7 layers.
Right.
Okay, so when we went 7 layers deep, I discovered that my why was really about my 12-year-old self.
Mm.
Everything that I've done in my life was to not to help people not feel the way I felt at 12 years old. I felt like I was abandoned. I felt like I was left behind. And so everything, like my foundation, the way my life changed with my kids were born, the way I've communicated with my staff, the way I've built companies, the way I've built communities, is basically like no one left behind.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's been my philosophy from the very beginning, not knowing that my why was based on that.
It's funny you say that. And to go back to you holding your daughter in the hospital, what came to me at when you said that was 98% of other people would be, okay, I'm going to go work for someone and I'm going to get a salary, and that salary is going to pay for the expenses, and those expenses are going to cover the household income.
Yeah. I got a job.
Okay. Okay. So you got it.
$5 an hour.
Okay. So you went to,
I tried that.
okay.
$5 an hour, not enough, right? That was the minimum wage back then. You're a young man,
Right.
right? But when I started in the workforce at 17 years old, 1995, the minimum wage was $5 an hour.
So you went, that was your, because
That's the only thing I knew.
And then 1 year in it, you were
Not even 1 year. I was like 2 months in it. 1 month in it. I was like, this sucks.
this sucks from a work, or like
No,
you're
just like
seeing
it,
it
like
doesn't
I'm
pay the
working
bills.
because number one, I wanted to go back to school. Like I wanted to finish my high school. So I dropped out of high school, and so
At that point, you don't have a mentor.
No,
or
I
a
had
thought,
I have nothing.
This is all
Yeah.
in your mind,
Yeah.
figuring things out.
Yeah, so I said, okay, I got to do what's right. I'm going to go back to school. And the reason I was going to go back to school was I never, ever wanted my daughter to say, I'm not going to finish my high school because you didn't. So I knew that was a responsibility. So now I got a full day at school.
And that was motivated by figuring out your 7 whys.
No, I didn't know that.
I know, but
yeah.
that triggered you go to school because you wanted to prove your daughter that you have to go to finish school.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I got a job. So it was after school. So now I got school full time. Then I'm going after school. And I think like my first paycheck was like, after working for 2 weeks, it was like $200 or something. I was like, what the hell? Like, what am I going to do with this? You know what I mean? And so I had to do something. And so I went, and I was in Toronto, and there's this guy selling jeans on Young Street. So I don't know if they have that now, but on Young Street they used to have all these people selling stuff outside, like all kinds of stuff. And so there was a guy selling T-shirts and jeans, and I'll never forget it. Like I cashed my check or whatever, and then I'm like, well, how much is a T-shirt or whatever? And I'm like, well, what if I buy five T-shirts? And he gave me the price. And what about five jeans? And it was like $20 or something. And I knew that no one has seen this stuff in Ottawa.
I'm thinking of Damon John and Shark
Ye-
Tank.
Basically, that's
Fubu.
basically what it
Yeah.
is, right? Like that's exactly how it started. And so I was like, okay, so um, I bought the jeans and the T-shirt, and we stuffed it in my backpack, and then I was in school, and and then the first kid, I was like, hey, like these are the jeans you're wearing. I got these, and I sold them for $60, making $40. Okay. And so when you make $40 in a 10-minute transaction, you can't go back and work for $5 an hour,
Right.
you know? And so I'm like, okay, this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. And so for that, by the time I was finishing my high school, I was living off of trading stuff, and basically I was able to provide for my family, everything with that little business, which is the clothing business.
And from El Salvador,
Mhm.
did that skill set, because in other countries like Italy and other countries, you can go, especially Latin America, they could sell you anything to anyone.
Yeah.
Where in North America, it's not like that as
Yeah.
much.
So I had not been exposed to that because I was when I left
You're
when I
too
left,
young.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was too young.
Okay.
And no one in my family other than my dad, so I've heard my mom says,
Mhm.
but no one was industrious, no one was an entrepreneur, you know. Uh Everybody was more professionals. My mom's an academic.
Mm.
There hasn't been any wealth in my family. And so this is kind of me trying to figure this out. Now, I did have an experience when I was 12 when I got a paper route. And so you're probably too young,
Mm.
but
No, I remember that. Like,
so kids used to deliver the
yeah,
papers. I don't know if did you have a paper route?
yeah,
Okay.
I did it once actually.
Okay. What was it?
It was the Ottawa Sun.
Okay, Ottawa Sun. So very similar.
Yeah,
So you deliver the papers and then you got to make the collections.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
So there's a field. We're all playing football, and 20 kids out playing football, and someone comes and says, "Hey, I'm leaving town. I have a paper route. Who wants it?" I was like, God damn, I want it. I want it. And I remember that because I'd been looking for an opportunity because uh, the biggest thing back then was MJ's, Michael Jordan
Yeah.
shoes. And, with my mom, there's no way we could afford these.
Mm.
And so I'm like, I got to do something. And so I got this paper route. The good news is it was in a building, an entire building, 22-story building. And the entire paper route was that building. It paid like $400 a month. So for a 12-year-old, that's a lot of money.
Right.
The problem was the papers were to be delivered after school and Saturday and Sunday morning. Well, that was like my cartoon watching time. And so I liked making the $400, but I didn't like having to give up my time because cartoons were like this was like very important to me. And so I ended up hiring my friend to do the deliveries, and we would split the
So you got the contract.
yeah.
Outsourced it.
Yeah.
Received the commission.
So I ended up getting two paper routes doing that, right? So I had two paper routes, and I was making about $300 a month in managing these two paper routes, and I had two employees. And so my mind kind of naturally went to that. I'm very industrious from that
Yeah.
perspective, and it's really about figuring things how to solve a problem. My problem at 17 years old was time. And so how can I make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time because I have to go to school full time. And
Right.
That was a non-negotiable.
Right.
And so, I mean, there was no online school or anything
Yeah.
back then. You had to kind of go to school. And so that's why I started that business. No mentorship, there was nothing other than I'm trying to make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. How can I do that?
And that grew to
2 stores across Canada.
wow. And then that grew to $1 million in debt.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. By the time I was 24.
So you were doing it out of your school, and then it evolved out
To like
of
physical look. So I graduated high school, and then I opened up my first physical location on Rideau. And then I grew that business. And because it was, it was a hip hop
yeah.
clothing store, and because it was during a time where it was like the golden era of hip hop, where everything you did around hip hop was going to grow. And Ottawa was something like a place where they had nothing,
Yeah.
I remember someone telling me before I opened my shop, they're like, it's not going to work. Do you see any hip hop stores in Ottawa?
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that's why it's going to work. There's nothing here, right?
Yeah.
So it's many ways of looking at something. And so that was my growth strategy, growing to market, going into markets where they didn't have any access to this urban streetwear.
Mm.
And so I mismanaged the money, and obviously I didn't know.
Mismanaged meaning not educated on the money,
For
or
what? Yeah, not
were
educated,
you
but I was a consumer.
right?
Like money in, money out, baby. Like buying stupid things, jewelry, and if you could only imagine all the cliche things I did worse.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of people go through that process too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up poor,
Right.
right? So if you grow up poor, you don't have there's no financial literacy in the home.
Mm.
You're even if you make a lot of money. Look at Mayweather right now. He's got to go back and fight. Mike Tyson, he's taking all these fights. He's trying to keep the all the people that want money
Yeah.
away because he mismanaged his money.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand the fundamentals of financial literacy.
It's funny you say that. I went to school in the States on a soccer scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
I went back a month ago, and now it's a Division I college. The basketball players or athletes get paid.
Wow.
Now, one of the basketball players is 20 years old, and he gets paid $300,000 a year. He walked into the bar with a $50,000 chain and bought everyone drinks.
Yeah.
The whole bar drinks. And I was just looking at him. I'm like, if you could just take that money and put it into a GIC at 5% or a real estate portfolio or whatnot, you can set yourself up for a lifetime of financial freedom.
Yeah.
But now you look like the guy and everyone's all over your shoulders and you're going to have nothing to show for it.
And now you got to keep up that facade.
Your identity is completely based on a materialistic lifestyle.
Yeah. And so that's what happened to me because I'm in the culture.
Yeah.
And that's all we saw. It's like, you have to show how much money you have now. Yeah. And so I realized really quickly that was self-destruction. And I had to change some things about business. And so then I'm like, oh, maybe I need to learn more about business. So I went to Chapters, and I'm like, I look at the business section. Where's the business section? And there was a couple of books there, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm like, okay, I picked that up. And then it's just like, it sucked me in because it's like, I get it. I get why I do things now, why I think certain ways, and I get why I'm in this situation, right? And so,
because the awareness of your past helps you with making decisions in the future.
100%. Like you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got his rich dad is his friend's dad, and his dad was the poor dad, right? The academic, and and that's how I was raised. I can see all of the you know, how I was raised in terms of pursue academics, pursue a job, and then when you get older, and if you don't want to do that or you don't resonate with that, you kind of feel like an outcast,
Mm.
you know. And then one of the things that I learned in a lot of these books is consumer mindset versus investor mindset. Consumers make money and buy stuff, and that's it. And they'll make more money and buy stuff, make more money, buy more stuff. Investors, people that have the investor mindset, make money and buy income producing assets that produce more money. And they'll turn around with that money, buy even more income producing assets, which produce even more money. And then they turn around and buy even more income producing assets. And so, two very distinct ways of living. And this is a whole lifestyle around these two things. And you just got to make a choice on which side you want to be on.
It's funny you say that. I can buy $1 million property or start $1 million business. I won't lose an hour of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to a restaurant and I spend $500 or $250 on a meal, I'm like, ah, that consumer
Yeah,
mindset
yeah,
kicks in, and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want to do that.
yeah,
But then I can always justify
yeah,
that investor's mindset
yeah,
of taking that chance to 10xing it.
yeah, yeah,
So let's talk about real estate.
yeah.
You're the real estate godfather. A
Mhm.
lot of Italians might be offended by that. By the
Yeah, so to clear it up, it's like, you know, it's part of my personality.
Yeah.
I'm a fun, quirky guy. I don't take myself too seriously. And you know, because I've been doing this for a long time. So you know, when I was 30 years old, I was financially free and I decided to get into the space. That's not 18 plus years ago.
Right.
And so I've trained a lot of people, and my students became gurus, and their students became gurus, and some of their students became gurus. We're multiple generation of gurus here,
Right.
you know? And so after a while, people started asking, well, where did you learn your real estate? And where did you learn this? And then it all came back to me. And so a lot of my students they started saying, well, he's the godfather of real estate, you know? And so they started doing memes. And I never had a nickname.
Mm.
I never had a nickname before. And I said, okay, you know, if I was going to do a nickname, I think this is a nice, fun nickname versus like the king of this or the king of that. You know, people become the king of things.
Mm.
I don't know. That's kind of been used a lot. You know,
Yeah.
I'm another king of something. I'm king of multifamily. So I said, okay, I'll play along with this, and it just kind of
Evolve.
stuck. Yeah, it kind of evolved where we do skits and stuff, and little videos, and you know, it becomes something fun. It's part of my brand, right?
And it's funny because me saying that is the Italian tradition, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I have two sides of my mom's side. My grandfather came from Italy, poor, bought real estate,
Mm-hmm.
$10, built a little empire for
Yeah,
himself
yeah.
through real estate because the prices back in 1970 were $6,000 for a property. You could pay it off in 4 years and you could just keep on moving from there.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's side's more engineers, the academic. So that's where I get, you know, the education part of it. Back to the real estate. I've been around real estate my whole life. I remember going to my grandfather's house on a Sunday and him calling a tenant, I need the money. Like back then, it wasn't the N9 or the N4 filling those things out. It was you're going to the house and you're collecting,
Yeah.
or you're getting out. Real estate has evolved in the last 50 years, especially in Ottawa.
Yeah.
When you started in like doing the math, 2008, it sounded like 15 years ago. What was the mindset then? Was it buy single family houses, always buying multi-res in Ottawa, in Canada? How did you buy your first house and then kind of scale that to kind of where you are now?
So I went. Well, the first move that I made when I was 20 years old, I bought a house, but I bought it as a consumer. So I was not looking at it as an investment. I was like, wow, I can buy a house, and And really, nobody in my family ever owned a house. So I bought this house. It was a new house. And so when I went through my issues, 24 years old, negative $1 million, I needed to transition. And I said to myself, never is this going to happen to me again. And so I rebuilt my company. But after reading all those books, the common thread amongst all the wealthiest people in the world, because I didn't just study one, I said, okay, I want to be wealthy. I made a decision. I said, I want to be wealthy. I don't want to be well off. I don't want to I don't want to have a thriving business. I want to be wealthy. That was my decision.
Like generational wealth?
Generational wealth. I want to be wealthy, and I want I never, ever, ever want anybody that in my family to ever have to think about money or what have you. And there's this missing part that I never got, which is financial literacy. I'm going to make it my life's mission to make sure that everybody around me understands this. And so reading all these books, I realized the common thread amongst multiple, all the wealthiest people in the world is that they all own real estate.
Right.
They own other businesses. Everybody has business stocks, but they all own real estate.
Yeah.
There's many reasons for that. Number one, cash yield, right? There's a high cash yield. It's a hard asset, so it's a great way to store value. It's leverageable, so you don't need all of the money to buy this asset. The banks are telling you this is a good asset. We will lend you money on this asset. And then the last one was the most interesting one, which is the equity buildup. And so what happens when you own a property is that it goes up in value, it appreciates. And if we just go based on 3% per year, we're not talking about crazy appreciation and all this stuff, but let's just go 3% per year. And then you're also paying down your mortgage. So your tenants are paying their rent, and you're using the money from your tenants to pay down your mortgage. And so what happens over time is you're building up your equity. And I thought that was really interesting because by the time you get to year number 5, you can refinance this asset and pull that equity out. And now it's tax-free. You can pull out money tax-free. And so the tax advantages, when I'm reading about all the wealthiest people in the world, and you being an accountant, you know this, when you sell the asset, there's a capital gains. That's a taxable activity. When you refinance the asset, this is not a taxable activity because it's a debt restructure and you don't pay taxes on borrowed money. And so when I looked at it, I don't know, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, this is why the wealthy own large assets. And you want to own the largest assets possible that are paid by other people because of this formula right here. Because the asset becomes the golden goose. And every 5 years or so, the golden goose is going to lay a golden egg. And that's why I decided to jump into commercial right from the get-go. There was 2 things that were happening to me. Number one, I did buy my first house, but the house has many expenses and I didn't have any income coming in because I'm rebuilding my company. So I sold that house and I realized, whoa, this house not only kept its value, but it continued to increase. And so when I saw how vulnerable I was with my business, I said, I got to build another stream of income that's indestructible, something solid. When I looked at single family homes, I said, no, I haven't read anybody in the books that I was reading that owned a portfolio of 2,000 homes. The wealthiest people in the world own larger commercial real estate. And so I was like, that's what I want to go into. And then it was reaffirmed to me because I couldn't even qualify for those smaller properties at the time. I didn't have much of an income as a self-employed, and I was like, man, I got to get into real estate, but I can't qualify for these mortgages. And someone said, hey, why are you playing around with those things? If you level up, then the asset itself has to qualify. So it takes you out of the equation. So for single family homes and the smaller properties, they look at your debt to income ratio. Well, that's limited. Like you can only have, you know, 3 or 4 mortgages under your name. That's not going to change your life. If you went out and bought 4 houses right now, that will not change your life. And so that's when I decided that, okay, no, I was going to go after larger apartment buildings because the way they qualify that mortgage is based on the DCR, the debt coverage ratio. And that's not about me. It's about the asset. So that means that there is no limits. It's infinite the amount of properties that I can buy. And if I can buy an infinite amount of properties that are paid by the tenants, those mortgages are paid by the tenants, and I create this equity buildup where every 5 years or so I'm going to go and create and have a harvest, right? And there's going to be this golden egg at the end of the 5 years. I couldn't see any other business. There's no other business that has all those profit centers and could provide all of those advantages. I was like, it's logical. This is where I need to be.
And back in 2008, when you're buying those big multi-res properties,
Yeah.
so they're considered commercial because they're over 8 properties. Is that?
Yeah, commercial. The key is in the financing, right? So there's residential financing and commercial financing, right? So it's a multi-residential, but the financing is commercial financing.
So it's just higher interest rate.
It's lower interest rate, longer amortization, easier to qualify.
So you went after how many apartments would be in a building?
Well, when I started, it was 7, then 10, then 16, then 24s, then 50s, 60s, 100 units at a time.
And all in Ottawa, or?
I would say I started right here in Ottawa. I started right in Mechanicsville, Vanier.
You
I'm
went to the hood back then.
I'm the one that's responsible for the rebranding of Vanier. We call it Eastboro now. Okay, so don't get it twisted. It's Eastboro, but after I started to see the systems could, you could go to different markets. So I started to go to secondary markets outside of Ottawa, tertiary markets, and then I started going down the 401, Brockville, Kingston, Belleville, Hamilton, down south, and then I started going across the country, and then I started to go in the U.S.
So how many properties do you have now?
I would say just under 1,000 doors.
1,000 doors.
Yeah.
Across North America.
Yeah.
When we talk about apartments that you bought at the beginning, did all of them cash flow at that time? And
I've made mistakes, and the beauty about multifamily is that because it has money coming in, so you get a second shot at it, right? If you make a mistake, if you're able to increase income or reduce expenses and run it more efficient over time, it's forgiving in that way where it's like time will erase the mistake.
And the bigger the apartment, the more
forgiving.
Yeah, because if 1 or 2 units go, it's
But yeah. 5%. So to answer your question, everything I've bought, the intent was for it to be cash flowing,
and the banks would finance. What I'm trying to get at is 18 years appreciation has went through the roof.
Yeah.
In Canada, are you still seeing deals now?
100%. The deals are right now. People are taught to chase the market. No one's taught to make money from any market. And so that's kind of like my life's work in teaching people and how to profit from any market. The market is up, down, sideways. The same wind blows on everyone. And so when you see that everything is softening, this is the time to take action
Because of why?
because things are now in your favor. You have more of the control, right? So you have buyer's market, you have seller's market, right? So back in 2021, 2022, that was a seller's market because every deal had 100 offers, and it drives up the price. And so, you know, people were buying things that weren't even cash flowing. People were buying things just because real estate is always going to go up, so I'm just going to buy whatever I can get my hands on. And so that mindset, it's greed. And we know Warren Buffett, he said, when people are greedy, you should be fearful. And when people are fearful, like they are right now, you should be greedy.
Mm,
And so right now, there's more inventory than there ever was.
mm,
The prices are coming down. Cap rates are increasing,
mm,
and and we're going through the biggest wealth transfer in human
mm,
history as we speak. And so there's a lot of mom and pop operations, and because there was no financial literacy being taught to young people for the past 60 years, the next generation doesn't have a passion to own assets or accumulate wealth. And so, for the very first time in human history, the average person has an opportunity of accumulating significant wealth. And that's all happening right now.
mm,
Media is not talking about it. There's so much noise out there, and people are distracted.
mm,
That's why it's good.
mm.
It's good because everyone's distracted. This is our opportunity um, to get some serious assets under our belt.
In regards to when you talk about passive,
Mhm.
is real estate owning multi-res passive income?
I don't think anything is really passive. I mean, we talk about passive income, but it's going to require your time and effort, and especially when you set it up. So the way that I look at it is it's a business, and for a business to be passive, well, you have to lead people. You have to put people in the right places. You have to have systems, right? People, process, um, product. Like you have to have the right product, right people, the right systems in place, and profit. Things have to be profitable. That's the only way you could be passive. Now, on the other side, we call it the ultimate passive, where you can invest into, for example, I have a REIT,
Mm,
so people can invest into my REIT and they get dividends, and you know they are on vacation, and
mm,
we're working. Okay, so I would say that's the ultimate passive, but they still have to manage. Someone has to manage those funds, right? So, they could be the money managers, so they have to allocate money and they have to kind of move it around. That still requires time,
right.
right? And it's like you're an asset manager of your own portfolio, even if you are investing passively. But you got to say, okay, well, this is good, but yeah, you got to pay attention where this is going. And so everything's going to require effort. And the only way you can make things easy on yourself is by getting educated, educating yourself, learning how it works. And, um, and yeah, it can be more passive. Like it's passive for me because I've built a team. I have a system. We have the right assets, and when something is maybe hurting over here, but this is thriving over here. So we've diversified the
Right.
portfolio. The team knows what to do. Um, everybody is happy. And then that means that, I can go to El Salvador for 5 weeks. And
How big is that team?
our core team, so we have a core team of like 15,
Mm,
um, 15 employees, and then probably another 30 subcontractors
mm.
and people that support the business.
Yeah, because I asked that. That's a pretty amazing return on investment in regards to 1,000 doors to 15 employees and then contractors. Like, if you equivalent that to business, if you're doing that revenue or that amount of products, you probably would need a lot bigger team and a
Mhm.
lot more cash flow to handle the operations than that happen.
Well, we're operators, right? And we also outsource in markets that we don't have a core team. We'll outsource to another property management company, for example. So our property management company will outsource to another property management company, and that comes with their team, right? So we're really the asset managers.
And there's a few things that I want to touch about. Like, I understand the tax benefit of it. What no one really taught me on the other side was once I sold my business, I had cash. I had debt in real estate. I paid off some real estate. Now those real estate transactions had no debt, so it didn't have any expenses. Now I'm taxed up the yin yang because I don't have interest on my mortgage
Yeah,
or whatnot.
yeah,
So now I'm like, well, actually, do I put debt back on these houses to expand,
yeah.
or how do I structure it? What would you say on that?
Well,
Second thing is labor cost now have went through the roof. If I call a tradesperson, good luck finding someone. Like, I'm talking the local, maybe wants to get into it and wants one or two
mhm,
properties. Every time I call someone, I have a property manager set up. I have all these people set up, but it's thousands of dollars to replace a roof now versus, hundreds 5 years ago
mhm.
type thing. The capital expenditures, labor costs, material has been increased significantly. How do you handle those objections going into real estate too?
The most important number in real estate is the number of doors, because the more doors that you have under one roof, you get to tap into the economies of scale. So you're an accountant, you understand economies of scale very well. And so what happens is people get stuck trying to buy those smaller properties and trying to manage everything themselves, and that sucks. Yeah, this is you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. And I'm not saying
No,
you
no.
specifically, but
Yeah.
like generally
I
speaking,
yeah, you
right?
yeah.
So those are old school mindsets where it's like, let's buy whatever we can get our hands on. Let's pay off the mortgage as fast as possible. Now, where does that come from? Well, it comes from probably the mindset of, people coming out of the Great Depression, where they don't believe in debt, and they believe in saving money. And in 1944, they reset the monetary system in 1944, where all the governments of the world had to bring all of their gold to Fort Knox. So we know Fort Knox has the biggest gold reserves out of any place in the world. And this is because all these countries that were subscribed to this new monetary system brought their gold, and in exchange, they would be given these pieces of paper, these currencies that will always be backed by the gold. And they made the U.S. currency the reserve currency of the world. And so it worked. Everybody tapped into the system. People plugged in. Everybody was bringing their gold, and in exchange, they would get these pieces of paper that were backed by gold. So during those years, early 40s and 50s, 60s, it was a good idea to save money. It was a you wouldn't why would you want to have debt? You want to hold your wealth in currency because it's always backed by the gold. And so at some point, some of these other countries, Netherlands and some European countries, are like, oh, we want our gold back, and other countries were like, we want our gold back too. And so imagine everybody went to the bank and asked for their money back. The bank doesn't have it.
Right. The Ponzi schemes goes in.
Yeah, and so people were like, oh shoot, like then people started talking, and so in 1971, President Nixon at the time removes the gold standard from the dollar, the US dollar, making every currency that's connected to that fiat currency, pieces of paper. And ever since then, we've always, and this is the biggest heist in
Yeah.
in human history, where everybody got robbed blind. And ever since then, we've been dealing with inflation because all we have is pieces of paper. And so, what's the U.S. debt?
31 trillion.
31 trillion.
Yeah.
And we understand how inflation works.
Mm.
That means that any given day, we could wake up one day and the money is worth nothing, correct?
Correct.
If the money's worth nothing, what happens to that debt?
It goes away.
Yeah. And so, but they still have the country, they still have all the bridges, they have all of that stuff. And so, the thing about real estate that makes it so interesting is the fact that it's an amazing store of value. So the current value that you have, that's where you want to store your value in a hard asset. You could do that with gold, by the way, but it doesn't provide income. It costs you money to store it. And so the beauty about real estate is that you can leverage against it. You can borrow. And if the monetary system goes to zero, what happens to the debt on your property?
It goes up.
No, if the money goes to zero, what happens to the debt?
Oh, it goes to zero.
Goes to zero.
Yeah.
And so the people that are going to win are the people that have good debt.
Right.
Because money, and you're an accountant, you know this, the monetary system starts with debt.
Yeah.
The whole thing is based on debt. And so, there's going to come a time where, and I'm not here to, go down any, rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, but at the end of the day, the people that win are the people that are holding the largest amount of good debt, meaning backed against large assets. The only thing you don't want to do is you don't want to be over leveraged. But I plan to hold this debt, and every 5 years or so, I'm going to pull out my money tax free. Why would I want to reduce the debt so I can now have cash flow that's taxable? I'm going to increase the debt as much as possible and pull out the money tax free. And then I can now continue to grow my portfolio.
Love it. Love that strategy. Who taught you this strategy?
Well, it's the thing about reading, right? So I was reading about like what the wealthy do. Right. So if you want to be wealthy, you got to study the wealthy. Yeah. And I started to see, it started to make sense. And I realized that 96% of the people don't understand because they don't have financial literacy. So when I talk about financial literacy, these are the exact things that I'm teaching young people. This exact what I've just described to you. I'm not telling them people how to manage their pocketbook, because I've seen some schools are like, we have financial literacy. And you're like, what are you teaching the kids?
Yeah.
Well, how to have a bank account. Well, okay, well, that's not financial literacy. Their parents could do that. They need to understand how the monetary system works. And in July, I went to Sierra Leone, Africa. And we built a school out there with my partner. Shout out to Tara, Freedom Tree. So we built a school out there, and we did a financial literacy event in Sierra Leone. And the venue was full, right? Venue was full, and so these kids were like this, right? And exactly what I'm talking about right now is exactly what I was teaching these kids. And at the end of it, all of these kids, they came up to me and they're like, thank you for showing us how to fish. And I believe you can save a lot of nations, a lot of people, just by simple financial literacy. If you understand how the monetary system works, now you can understand how to work within it and how to benefit from it.
I have a lot of questions there, but I mean, I appreciate the philosophy around it because I totally agree. It's not spoken a lot. And I think people, and I totally get the whole tangible assets. So what's your relationship with debt?
Love it. Good debt. I don't have much.
Tell me what's good debt.
Good debt is any debt that's paid by somebody else.
That's great.
Right? So the governments have good debt because who pays for the debt?
Who pays for the debt of the
government?
Yeah.
Who pays for it?
The people?
Yeah, that's good debt.
Yeah. The taxes, yeah.
Right? So, any debt that's paid by someone else, it's good debt. So if you take on debt to start your business and it's going to be paid by your clients, and you're going to take on debt on a mortgage on an asset where it's paid by your tenants. This is all I would say is good debt. Debt that is you have to pay for it because it's a luxury, a car, you know. To me, all that is this is bad debt.
And you've gotten yourself out of, because you've grown out of, like you've grown out of
Commercial, like consumerism.
and risking yourself.
Mhm.
Like if you had 100 units, well now like I have 20. One of my tenants will call and he won't pay for 6 months.
Mhm.
Well, if it's one out of 20 units, that's 5%. But if one out of
Well, hold on. Depending on the asset, because if the asset, if you have a 20-unit asset, you paid because you're tapping in. Once you buy a larger apartment building, that's why the the thing that counts the most is the number of doors. So you have a 20-unit apartment building. If all your doors were under one roof, that one person, and I believe in there's nasty people in the world, right? But you still have 19 other units paying you rent. But if someone is going to do that in a single family house,
right,
you're screwed, chewed, and tattooed
right.
if you're depending on that money to pay the mortgage.
So that's how you de-risk yourself too.
Yeah, you spread the risk among multiple units.
Right. And in regards to construction, did you learn construction?
Yeah, so we started building. So I started buying brand new apartment buildings in 2020 directly from the builders. And I realized that, whoa, I get a brand new asset. And the more I would do this, the more I would do my research, and I would see what they were doing. And the idea of land development was really interesting to me. I'm not a handy person. I'm not I'm not.
Could you swing a hammer?
No.
Okay.
But I love numbers.
Yeah.
And the numbers just work, you know. And in terms of the business that we're looking for, because we're buy and hold investors, so we buy it and we hold them forever. That's the objective, you know, or as much as forever that we can.
So you haven't sold one property?
We sold some of the like smaller stuff,
Okay.
you know, like as we're leveling up, we sold some of the stuff that doesn't work, and we just continue leveling up. But ultimately, you don't make any money by selling properties. You make it by holding them.
Right.
And so, you know, you can go into value add, or you can buy them already, you know, turnkey. And the beauty about buying turnkey is like we just hold them, and then we just can now focus on the next asset,
Right.
and the next asset. And so the idea of new build was really interesting to me. And then I started doing my research. There's a lot of money to be made on the way to building the property, right? So there's the upzoning, there's the entitlement, site plan approval, then there's the permitting stage, then there's the build out. At any point in time, you can have an exit, but the property increases its value on the way. So I started doing land development, and then we started using the MLI Select program, and I partnered with a builder, and we created our own construction company. And then we started building our own buildings.
Okay. So he does all the development.
I do the development. Someone has to focus on the build.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
The development is finding the opportunity, right?
Okay.
Seeing the opportunity, seeing the land, you know, making sure that you're using it to its highest and best use, and how many units, and rezoning and permitting and all that stuff.
So you take it. Okay. So you have a company now that could build a high rise?
Yeah. No. Well, low rise.
Low rise.
That's my go-to. Wood frame. You know,
How many?
preferably, you know, walk-ups, you know, two-story walk-ups, but we do have we have elevators, but just, you know, secondary markets, you know, a lot of space. That's kind of what we focus
How
on.
many units would be a low rise?
Well, just the low rise is basically I would say under six floors.
Okay.
You know, anytime you start building with concrete and steel, you have anything above 6 floors, and I would say even 5. You probably don't want to go more than 5 with wood.
Mm.
I built everything 5 floors down, wood frame. Um,
And now Ottawa's introducing a whole bunch of new zoning.
yeah.
What's your thought process on that?
I think it's good. I don't think it's good enough because the cost of building is so high, and I think it's because you have these like the infill lots, right? So you know you can get probably max an 8-plex on there,
Mm.
or maybe if you're lucky a 10.
Mm.
They don't pencil out the way I like for them to pencil out. I prefer to build 24. We just finished a 52 unit. We're building another 44. To me, that makes more sense. And so I think,
Back to your economies of scale.
yeah, because it's, the cost of building is so much. I'll give you an example. So we're building we built a 52 unit with the land. It cost me $190,000 a door to build
Okay.
with the land. I'm building a 16 units, and it's costing me, I would say, $260 a door with the land.
Right.
What is like what
Right.
what's the difference? It's the same thing. It's the same material, same everything. Well, the majority of the expense comes up front, pouring the concrete.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And you can pour the concrete for 16 units, or you can pour the concrete for 50 units.
Right.
The price is going to be relatively the same within the
Yeah.
margin, but ultimately this is going to cost you so much more to build than the 50 unit. And
So would you recommend someone building an 8 unit now?
there is obviously exceptions to the
Yeah.
rule, and it depends on where they are in their life. Like if you're going to build an 8-plex where you're going to move into one of the units,
Right.
and you see it, like you'll see it, you can kind of
So let me
manage it for the long term.
rephrase the question. Would you buy?
No.
Okay. Would you build a 16 unit again?
Probably not.
Would you build a 32 unit?
24. It's kind of where I see the numbers working. One of the vehicles that we were using was the MLI Select program, which
Tell us a little bit about that.
so the MLI Select program, it's actually one of the best things that the government's ever done. And I say that I say that because the government never does anything good. But when I say that the best thing is, I've looked all over the world for something similar. Nothing exists like the MLI Select. And what the MLI Select, the intent of the MLI Select program is, it's a CMHC product, okay? And the intent was to stimulate the building of units in Canada. It did just that, right? Because I got into building because of that product. And it's actually it's a point system. So you have certain points for efficiency, affordability, and accessibility, right? So those are the 3 main points, and you get certain points, and then if you meet all your points, efficiency, accessibility, and affordability, then you qualify for the full MLI Select program, which is it's going to be a lower DCR. So that means that you get more money, 5% down, so 95.5 loan to value, and longer amortization, so a 50-year amortization versus a 40-year standard CMHC. And so that means the property is going to cash flow, and you can build with less money out of your pocket, little to no money out of your pocket. Now, because you're increasing the value of the land as you are going through the permitting and the site plan approval and all that stuff, you can actually use the increased value in the land or in the property as your 5% down. Okay. So we were doing deals with no money out of our pockets. Wow. Building apartment buildings, 50-unit apartment buildings with no money out of our pockets. I don't know where you could do that in the world, Right. And a lot of people were doing this, and so they started by closing the, for example, they said, oh, now it has to be affordable. Now you need this piece. They increased the premiums, and I think coming down the pipeline, they're probably gonna make the efficiency component really unattainable. It's like would be ridiculous. Like nobody would go through it. And so I think it's going to slow down a lot of the builds, people building. And I'm thinking they're probably going to phase it out by next year or something. Once people stop using it, it's going to be phased out, and that will be it for the MLI Select program. And so, like the government, in a true sense of the word, they like taking things that are good away.
So going back to people are building now, or there's opportunity to build.
Yeah, right now.
We talk about the rat race.
Mhm.
If people don't listen to people like yourself, people like myself, not putting us on pedestals at all, once these once the government removes stuff like this, and less people build and less opportunities are happening, maybe there'll be other opportunities. You build X amount of units. The people that don't do it now or get into it, that rat race will increase for a lot more people. Do you agree?
Well, not everybody's going to want to buy apartment buildings, right? I think for the investors that are wanting to get into this space, I think this is now the time. There's a few factors which makes it the perfect storm, right? So we have inventory, low interest rates. We're going through the greatest wealth transfer in human history, and inflation is going to continue to do its thing. And the governments will do everything to stop inflation, but inflation is going to continue to do its thing. And so things are going to get more expensive, more unattainable. And Canadians are becoming a renter's nation.
Right.
So the things that you do today will really set you up for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so there's an urgency right now because the greatest wealth transfer in human history, do you know how much it is?
No.
$124 trillion in assets. $124 trillion in assets. It's going to change hands in the upcoming years, right? Primarily because baby boomers, we all understand that they're all, exiting businesses, portfolios, real estate, life. And the next generation doesn't want to hold these assets. Canada, and we're now the immigration, they need another 25 million more people, even though they've slowed down immigration. Canada's GDP depends on the immigration, and so we're expecting 25 million more people in the next 20 years. That's the slow way of doing things. But ultimately, Canada will look very much like Europe. So going back to what you described with the rat race or whatnot, Canadians are going to be renters. Assets won't change hands as much, and that's not like I have a crystal ball, but I can see where things are going.
And this is exactly where my question was going.
Yeah, so it's going to look very much like Europe, where assets don't really change hands as much. It stays in certain circles and certain families, and everybody's just a renter.
You wouldn't buy a single family house. You wouldn't buy a 5-unit. You won't buy a 10-unit. You won't buy a 16-unit. There is a big gap. And I'm thinking of the 20-year-old or the 24-year-old or the younger the younger me. There's 0 to 24 units where the numbers make sense. What's your advice to that 24-year-old right now?
Get in. So look, I have. Let me see if I can find this here. Just so your audience knows that I'm not just crazy here. So I had these kids, okay? So they came to one of my events, 18 and 12 years old. So not 12, 18 and 19 years old, but they look like 12. I'm looking at them. They look like my kids. They could be my kids. So I'd say kids, not in a disrespectful way, but they could be my kids at 18 and 19 years old, okay? And This is you can read it, so it's not coming from me. I'm giving it to you. And look at the picture first of all. Look at the picture of these young people, Oliver and Gabriel.
Behind us, it's the 12 unit we just bought in Montreal yesterday.
18 and 19 years old. And so you can change your life at a young age. You just gotta have the systems, the tools. You have to learn what to do, or else you're gonna do what everybody else is doing. And if you do the same thing you've always done, you're gonna get the same results that you've always gotten. And so there is an opportunity for the six plexes, the 10 plexes, and 12 plexes. There is an opportunity. It's not an opportunity for me, but there is an opportunity to really build significant wealth with 10 units and 12 units and leveling. As long as so I believe in expansion. So when is this coming out?
In April.
In April. So perfect. If you are anywhere in the Ottawa area, I have a conference coming up, and we'll talk about that off air because I think you might enjoy our conference. It's called the Expand Investor Conference, May 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how maybe we can write something in the show notes to give them some. We'll give them an offer. Okay, I'm going to put in a special offer. So David's got to give it to you guys. So if you don't see this offer in the show notes, you DM me right away, and we'll give you the offer. It'll be from this for this show. Okay, so I'll keep me accountable to that. Yeah. But it's right here in Ottawa at the Chateau Laurier, and it's called the Expand Investor Conference. Okay, and so the whole philosophy is on expansion, is an expanding mindset. So you can even start with a fourplex, as long as you continue to grow and expand and build. That's how I built my portfolio. So there's opportunities in all parts of real estate.
I appreciate that. I'm going to question it though.
Okay.
A 16 unit costs $260,000 a door. A 32 unit, or whatever the math was $109,000. I forget what the units were.
To build.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting people go into building. You want to start with, you're talking about someone starting.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm looking at the numbers for under 10 units.
Yeah. So we're talking about building.
Yeah.
Right. Because the cost of building is so outrageous, materials, labor, all that stuff. So you need economies of scale. But the existing buildings are already built, right? And so if you ask me today, where should someone start with existing buildings or building? I would say existing. Don't go into building if you haven't owned the real estate, And so I think people could buy existing buildings.
Do you think they have enough time to expand? Like, I'm all about stepstone, like stepping. You get one employee, then you get 3 employees, then you get 5 employees. Don't just jump up to. I ran an accounting company, human. Now I'm running an AI company, technology. If I jumped right to an AI company, I probably would have failed because I needed to go through all those steps that were a lot less risky, building a service business versus a tech business.
Do you believe there's technologies and tools right now that can help you skip that step?
100%. But I don't know if my mind, the risk of making a mistake is 10x jumping versus.
So now I'll ask you this question. Where do you think you have more risk, with smaller properties or larger properties?
Smaller properties.
Yeah. So why not skip that step?
And that's what I'm trying to say for that 24-year-old.
Yeah.
Skip those steps.
Skip the small stuff. Right? I would say, like, skip the single, at least. Some people, they're like, okay, I'm going to sweep my basement or whatever, and I'm like, okay, that's okay. That's where someone feels comfortable, as long as you're expanding, right? So we believe in expansion. For somebody, a fourplex, a fourplex can work if you're living in one of the units and you're kind of manage it, and that. But if that's your lifestyle, that's what you want. I would say, you could jump to commercial right away, and I would say anywhere between a 7 unit to a 12 works. My second property was a 7-plex.
18 years ago. Would it,
More than that. It's 20 something years ago.
okay. Would you still have that mindset now in this economy?
I didn't have the tools.
But
So now we provide people the tools. So these guys, 18 years old, they can go right to 12 units. I didn't have the tools. Like, I didn't have the community,
Right.
because if you can get around, like, if you can partner up with 4 or 5 other people
Right.
and share resources and tools, then you can level up to 12, 16 units. I prefer you do that,
Yeah.
but start.
Yeah.
If the only thing the only thing you see right now is a 4-plex, if you can move into one of the units, yeah, sure, do that. Start.
Yeah.
Nothing should stop people from starting.
I appreciate that so much because I do agree with two things. One, starting. Second is having the tools.
Yeah.
And I definitely will do whatever I can to bring as many people to your conference as possible because I think I don't have a crystal ball either, but in 20 years, it is 100% going to be a renter's economy
Yeah.
or renter's market in Ottawa, especially.
The 20 million people come into Canada. That means Canada will be over 60 million people. I can't say that the same opportunities will be available for those 20 million people that there are for the people that are already here right now.
Totally agree.
And so I don't know when the next biggest wealth transfer will be available, and maybe never, because the population is only getting smaller. As we get older, the generations, there's no big boom of population, and so what's creating the wealth transfer is this big boom. And this is the opportunity that our great great grandparents wish they had.
Yeah.
Right? And it's here for us. This is like we're living in the best of times right now. And David, your great grandkids, you have kids?
Yeah.
How old?
5 and 2.
Oh, so cute. um so they're gonna have kids, and those kids are gonna have kids. And by the time those kids, your kids have kids, you're gonna be like pretty old. And those kids are gonna ask you, those great great grandkids are gonna ask you, David, is it true that you were alive during the greatest wealth transfer in human history? And what did you do?
Right.
Just the same way you talk about your grandfather
Yeah.
taking advantage of, the low cost of land or whatever. He made decisions for the family
Yeah.
that now the family is well off for. And so everybody will be asking that question, because we're living through the best of times. We're living through the greatest wealth transfer in human history. And so the question that you have to ask yourself is, on what side of that wealth transfer do you want to be on?
And do you see the same opportunity in the States and in Canada?
I put Canada and the US together.
Okay.
I don't separate it. I invest both sides of the border. It's just, it's a market that has 10 times the inventory, but there's opportunities in Canada and US.
Where
I don't limit myself. What makes it possible is the Western banking system.
Hmm.
That's what makes it possible. That's what makes this system, and the pulling of equity. And I try to talk to someone like about that at a bank in El Salvador, refinancing. They're like, "What? What are you talking about? That's not legal."
Can you give us 2 nuggets of where in Canada or in the States you would invest right now in?
Well, I'm always going to return where I'm going to get the highest return on investment on my money, and opportunities are popping up everywhere. To me, the most obvious one is, you know, there's safety um, in markets that are very conservative, like Ottawa. They're so predictable, and I'm all around Ottawa. This is kind of like my stomping ground. I have stuff in New Brunswick. I think New Brunswick offers, good cash yields. Saskatchewan, I've I've been growing the portfolio in Saskatchewan a lot. Actually, lately, it looks like, after Albertario, okay, well, Alberta became Albertario because people are they're moving provincially. So a lot of people from Ontario have gone to Alberta, and they created a boom out there. I still feel there's a lot of opportunity in secondary markets in Alberta, markets that are supporting or around Calgary or Edmonton. But I like Saskatchewan. I like Saskatoon specifically.
And how about in the States?
U.S., I go where so people's way of investing in the U.S. is usually investing into markets where they want a vacation in. That's not a proper strategy. Again, I go to where where I'm going to get the highest return on investment, and I look at where the U-Hauls are going. Where are the U-Hauls going? And the U.S. is having an affordability issue just the same way that we're having here in Canada. And so people are migrating. Why do we call it Albertario? Because people migrated from Ontario to Alberta. And so in the U.S., the people are moving, right? So people are moving to Texas. I think there's certain markets in Texas that are interesting, but Tennessee, Ohio. I like. We are bullish on Cleveland, right? Cleveland, the average price per door is about $50K a door in Cleveland, and you can buy apartment buildings for 38 units for 1.8 million. And so you have a lot of opportunity everywhere, and you just got to do your market research. You got to learn about the economic drivers. You got to learn about what is your risk tolerance, what is your buy box. Those are all the things that I've spent my entire life helping people achieve. How to invest into real estate safely. How can it be a vehicle so you can create your time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom?
Tell me about Wealth Genius.
Wealth Genius is my platform. It's the educational platform. It's member based and education based. So we do events. I just came back from Los Angeles. We did a huge event out in the Renaissance Hotel LAX, and we have members, 1,600 members, and basically, we educate people. We create the infrastructure and the tools and support the systems for people to transact into real estate, particularly multifamily, because that's kind of like our MO. So if you want to get into the multifamily space, I think we're kind of the only ones in Canada that are teaching this stuff. Most of the stuff, education stuff that I see out there is kind of like how to buy real estate generally. We're kind of like more niche on multifamily, land development, U.S. investing, and raising capital. So these are kind of like the 4 pillars of what we focus on.
Love it. Love real estate. Love talking.
Yeah.
Is there anything I missed before?
So how long was that? 20 minutes?
Yeah. 142.
142. We went Joe Rogan on this.
Yeah. We're not done yet though.
All right.
Is there anything I missed before we get into the lightning round?
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, like we might have to do a part 2, because when you started in the real estate, you got me going.
Yeah, good. And it's a passion of mine too, and I've just been brought up in it, and now I'm looking at a lot of the numbers, and it's not making sense to me. But guess what? I've always looked at real estate as a passive way. I don't have the tools you have. That's why I was like picking your brain on top of it, because I do think the conferences that you host, it's like, my expansion is just this because I'm not in it every day. Your expansion is this because you're in it every day and you live and breathe it.
Yeah.
And that's how I am in accounting right now. My expansion's like, why isn't everyone doing AI products to solve this problem? Because I see it, and that's where my focus is at.
Yeah.
Where find the leaders in the industry, partner with them, to get your mind to expand, because you have your pulse in Cleveland, in Florida, in this and that, and all over the place, because you have a team around you giving you the information so that you can thrive and you can do it. And the fact that you're doing it, you can teach it to other people. I'm kind of sick of the people that the coaches out there, and I'm calling people out, but saying that, hey, this is the better way of doing things, but they haven't actually done it.
Mhm.
I would not have this podcast if I didn't go through the entrepreneurial journey
Yeah.
from start to finish and had the successes, but also had the failures. I could
Mhm.
talk about them openly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So even when we're talking about real estate, you know about the CMHA, you know about it all because
Mhm.
you've done it and you can
Yeah,
explain it.
yeah.
Incredible storyteller, by the way. I really appreciate your
I
wisdom.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So just a few lightning round questions: is vision first or execution first?
For me, it's vision. It's all about the vision. I've I've always lacked in the execution. So we all need integrators in our lives. So if you're a visionary, if you're listening to this, if you're a visionary, I'm a visionary, but you need to surround yourself around people that execute and they can take your vision and actually integrate it. And so vision for everything starts with a vision, but you need integration.
What is one metric you think founders obsess over too much?
Depends on the founder, right? So you have founders that obsess over expenses, and you have founders that obsess over revenue, right? So top line, bottom line, right? So I think there's people that obsess over bottom line, and there's people that obsess over top line. I'm a top line founder, and I'm like, if I could just improve the top line, we'll fix everything else. What I learned in my 30 years of business is like, we have to also take a look at the top bottom line, right? Because you could be improving the top line and then money's just being burnt.
Right.
So I think it's a balance of both, and it's all about attracting the people into your life that play at the things that you have to work hard at. So I've never been a bottom line person. So this is why I surround myself around people that have a focus on those things.
What is the first number you look at when you check the business?
EBITDA,
What is EBITDA?
earnings.
Before interest.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So in real estate, it's the NOI, net operating income. That's the number that will determine the value of the asset. Okay, so in business is EBITDA, and we have
Do you see that number daily, weekly, monthly?
in my business we have monthly meetings, and I'm looking at the P&Ls, right? And I think EBITDA only comes into play when you are looking to exit, or someone's buying or trying to value your business. So it's usually a multiple, multiple of, depending on the industry. Every industry has their own multiple,
Right.
and depending on the size of the business as well. So, um, yeah, those are the things I think about.
What is your personal definition of wealth?
Wealth is all about achieving freedom in those three categories: financial, time, location. And so for me, wealth is having the ability to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, for however long I want. However long I want is important. So that means that I have to have health, right? And so you have to take care of your health. You have to take care of the people around you, and to me, that's wealth to me.
When you feel stuck, what is your go-to reset?
So we actually have retreats. So I've been doing these for the past 7 years. I'm going on my 15th retreat, and so we bring 20 people. They're usually in exotic locations. We do it 4 times a year, and these mastermind retreats are really a deep dive into your own personal situation, and we go through goal setting, and we'll go through challenge, and you tap into the collective mind of people there. When I go to reset, my wife and I, we do a retreat on our own. So the same practices that we facilitate for other students, we go and we do our own retreat, and we do it probably once a quarter.
Nice. Finish the sentence. The best investment I ever made was.
The best investment that I've ever made was in investing in myself on education, mentorship. Those are the best investments: education, mentorship, um, you know, intensive trainings. I pour into myself. I I put everything that I have into myself, so I become more valuable in the marketplace.
I knew my life was changing when.
I knew my life was changing the first time I bought a trip for myself for all inclusive to Dominican Republic. I thought that was so. I'm like, hey, I'm a grown up now.
Mhm.
I'm buying a trip for myself. I'm going on an all inclusive.
If you're afraid to start, do this.
If you're afraid to start, start. If you're afraid to start, do it.
We have a closing question. If you put a sticky note on your first laptop before you ever got started, what would it say?
Success is what you attract by the person you become. Success is what you attract by the person you become. So we're all becoming, we're all evaluating, um, we're all continuing to evolve, and the end result is not the gift. Like if you're achieving all of your goals, it just means you're aiming too low. And even if you achieved your goals, so what? That's not the real gift. The real gift is the person that you're becoming on the way to achieving those goals. So the person that sits in front of you today is a person that I never could even fathomed becoming, when I was 15 years old. If you were to tap me on the shoulder and say, don't, Alfonso, one day you're going to be traveling all over the world, owning millions of dollars in real estate and inspiring thousands of people, I would have said, you're crazy. And so the person that I've become is more valuable than the doors and anything, because that is the true reward of pursuing things in your life. And so success is what you attract by the person you become.
I absolutely love this conversation from someone that came poor from a different country. And everyone talks about the American dream, but this is the Canadian dream.
Mhm.
And the fact that you've dealt with so much adversity. And what I really got from this conversation is how well educated you are
Mm.
in your storytelling, in your history, in your philosophy, in the game you're playing, in real estate, everything around it. There's a story behind it. And the story is very articulate, very educated, and very focused. And I think what you're doing with the younger generation, educating them, my wife's a teacher. I'm going into her school and educating her kids on
That's amazing.
financial
Yeah.
literacy because people don't understand what a mortgage is and what interest is, and understanding the financial game that gave up me financial freedom as well as
Mhm.
you. I learned it on myself. I did have mentors around me, but it was still me being like the light bulbs were going off like crazy on every move I made. And I still see the light bulbs go off in your mind, being like, there's another opportunity.
Yeah.
And you can look at it in two ways: the biggest wealth transfer or the affordability crisis.
Mhm.
Which way are you going to look at this time right now? You can either look, AI is going to replace a lot of jobs, or you're going to embrace an AI and be that 1% that learns it, that takes it to the next level. Really appreciate it. I would love to have a part two. Um, I would love to get those promo codes to put on my
Yes.
social media
Yeah. We're
to
gonna get
advertise.
we're gonna get you the promo codes. I think it's important, especially if you're in the Ottawa area or if you got to fly down.
Yeah.
Make this conference. It's definitely timely, and if you want to be in a position where you want to participate in this wealth transfer, come to the conference.
Thank you so much.
Share this with a friend so that they could be a part of this journey too. Keep watching for more.